Hi, everybody. Uh, Welcome back. We're the Masked Boomers. It's been a couple weeks.
Happy
Uh,
belated 4th of
yeah,
July.
happy belated Fourth of July, and it's funny we were and I'm Ward, by the way,
Cream soda.
and we've been talking about the fact that even in our own town, they canceled the
Fireworks.
fireworks, and it just and with all the ideology, the ideologies, stuff that's going on with the White House, it just feels like it hasn't been celebrated the way it ought to be. What do you think, Soda?
I just think there's a lot more people in this recent year who aren't feeling particularly proud of their country and the way things have been handled,
It's
and how we look really buffoonish to other heads of countries and other countries where we used to be the superpower.
or at least respected,
Respected,
yeah, and now we
that's
just
gone by the wayside.
yeah, our leadership is a joke.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's what we're identified with. Well, anyway, I mean, we on a brighter side, we had concluded. We would have talked a little bit about it last week. We had our kids and grandkids around for a number of days and got to visit with them, and they got to visit with each other, which is the highlight of most of the grandkids' year, because they don't see them all each other that often. So that was a lot of fun, and honestly, it was simple, and it was fun because it was simple.
Yeah.
And it kind of we were talking about this just a little bit ago before we came on. I mean, life was just a whole lot different back in the years when families kind of all were the homestead, if you were, they were, the society wasn't so mobile. The families weren't fragmented. Even good families are fragmented.
Right.
Because there's distance between you, and you lose the closeness, and I think you lose some of the ability to influence, and I mean that in a positive sense, with values. I mean, one of the things, I'm kind of going off topic here before we get started on some things, but we talked about it in terms of even within the family, the split might be the wrong word, but departure of the sets of values that each of the kids may have grown up with,
Right.
and what they've done with their own families, where we have uh, you know varying degrees of churched uh, kids, and therefore grandkids, and you can see the difference. I could just simply tell you that you can see the difference in those that are churched and are trying to follow what the scripture says, and raising their kids that way,
Right.
and those that aren't.
Right. Not
And,
that they're bad, but they're not churched.
well, and I mean, again, you say not that they're bad. We all go with the, well, they're good people. Well, all people are equally bad, whether they're churched or unchurched. To your point, Soda, right? I mean, some are just forgiven, and some are not, because they haven't realized the need for it. But it is just something to watch the divergence of how the various families and their parents behave, because the kids, you kind of
Yeah,
watch
parents.
you watch what the parents do, and you know what's going to happen with the kids. It's not a surprise, and at least it's not a surprise to us as we look at it. So we just it, this the things, doing things right, has to start with each of us individually. This isn't about blaming somebody else for not doing the right thing with their kids. It's up to us to behave as we individually should in front of our kids, in front of our grandkids, and set examples for your family. And that's kind of where we're at. It's a whole bunch of stuff, because the country, I mean, at the end of the day, that's at the heart of what's going on with the country is people not understanding, godly values. And in fact, that's what brought it to mind. The fact that people refuse to acknowledge that this was absolutely, from the very beginning, from the Mayflower Compact, a founded as a Christian nation for the honor of God, and that was in the Mayflower Compact before they even came off, and people just brushing all that aside.
Well, trying to rewrite the history to make it look like it was a white supremacist nation from the get-go.
Well, I mean, what?
Kind of tough.
Yeah, I mean, this is yeah. I mean, it's everyone is they talking about if we can get into the. I'm not going to get into the slavery thing. I mean, obviously, the original slavery still exists. It's existed all through history. Look at Scripture. But we were talking earlier. Even Scripture had standards on how owners were to treat their slaves several thousand years ago, which was kindly and take care of them and provide for them. Not advocating that people still own slaves today, but people are just so far
But
off
they
the
also
concept.
weren't lifelong slaves. They were given their freedom.
They could be freed, correct, or choose not to.
Right. They
Or
had
choose
the
not
option.
to.
Right.
And I mean, and let's not, we got to kind of call things where it is. The slave trade did not originate in the United States, the slave or the colonies. Slave trade was around for 5,000 years before anything ever happened, and it originated in the African continent. I mean, people raiding each other and trading each other and selling each other. Just anyway, that's that's a long way from the current topics we were going to talk about.
Right. Well,
Anyway, but important nonetheless. One of the things that we're going to talk about last time, and it has turned out to be one of those proverbial flashes in the pan, was the whole thing about the lost miniature sub that was going to explore the Titanic. Don't know if anybody out there has any thoughts in it, but from what, and I guess there's some different thoughts. We get what the media tells us.
well, don't you find it interesting though that usually when something like that happens, they throw up the pictures of the victims and the pictures of the people who were operating the sub.
Right.
And to my knowledge, I don't know that that's even been done. We don't even know the names of a lot of the people
Oh.
that supposedly died.
Well,
on that.
they did, and it's on. You can see it on the screen.
Oh,
now.
okay. Yeah.
Those are the folks
That were the passengers.
No, that's crew and the passengers were, I think, only three, and one of them was supposedly the owner of the company that did it, and the other two passengers were the Pakistani billionaire and his son, who were kind of science guys, and then the other folks were the people who were some of the people that were operating it.
It does say underneath, but I can't read it all.
Well, the folks, the gentleman and the young man in the red shirt are the father's son folks, and the guy on the left was the billionaire who owned the company. And so, and again, but there's and from what I understand, I mean, because remember, we heard a lot of people talking about, oh, we're going to find them. Where are they? They're down there. The air's going to run out. And I don't know if it's true or not, but the story now is that an hour and a half after they lost contact, they were only in an hour and a half or 2 hours. They lost contact with them, and shortly after that, some the Navy's buoys or whatever seismic stuff or picked up what they say were the sounds of an implosion. So it happened pretty early on. If there's any imperfection in the hull, the pressure at the depth they were at was like, I don't know, like some crazy thing, like I don't know, 100 times what the normal atmospheric pressure might be. So it just supposedly crushed it. The thing I found was interesting is that I actually heard people talk about the fact that they say that kind of pressure would crush it to almost nothing. You wouldn't even find anything, but yet there were pictures published. I don't see them anywhere here of supposedly the wreckage, being loaded on trailers, being brought from the ship. And I mean, and it looked like a crushed can, okay. But when you start talking about things being completely gone or vaporized almost because of the intense pressure, it just doesn't seem to make much sense.
So they can find the pieces of this, but they couldn't recover any of the balloons
Well,
that flew
we
over the United States.
yeah,
That makes a lot of sense, and it was in less depth.
there you go. See here.
Water.
Did you see that? There was that picture. Like, here's an end cap. Okay, here's some
Okay,
pieces.
so this
of it.
stuff doesn't make sense. That's the stuff that
They're saying they're bringing pieces of the wreckage in.
Yeah.
Okay, and I just don't. I don't know. I mean, again, you say to yourself, if you've got something that is crushed, that doesn't look necessarily crushed. It's perfectly shaped. I don't know.
Well, is that because they're trying to redeem themselves?
I just don't know. And of course they tape everything up and put stuff across it. And my feeling on that is, are you covering it up because practiced eyes could look at that and say, hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
Or it isn't, or what you're showing us isn't consistent with what you're saying happened.
3 bags that you can't even determine what's in them.
Right.
They aren't letting you see.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, there could be any, I mean, you could be seeing anything. All you're seeing is record. It could be anything.
But that doesn't look like something that blew up.
Or imploded. But
Segment.
implosion is crushing, not exploding.
Okay, so but still.
So, I mean, you wouldn't, yeah, it just doesn't, I don't know. It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And again, as I say, they cover everything up. So who knows? It's, I mean, and there are some who would say it was all an elaborate ruse just to deflect from things that are going on in the world.
Yeah, but then there's supposedly 5 dead people. I mean, you'd be able to one of them from I don't know. I just don't see how you can't track the lives of these people and know that they're dead or not.
Well, you can find them or you can't find them, but if you can't find them, that doesn't necessarily mean they're dead, I guess, right? Who knows? Anyway, I'm just saying that, there are people that feel it might have been an elaborate hoax. However, the other, again, if it's a really well orchestrated conspiracy, it goes back years because remember that guy who 5 years ago who worked for them, who they fired, suggested that it was unsafe. And he said you have to do destructive testing of this nature, and said until you do that, you really can't be sure that it's safe. And they didn't want to go. The owner, presumably the guy who was on this one, fired him. Said we're not going to go to that expense and do all that stuff. If that turns out to be true, he was the architect, quite literally, of his own misfortune.
Kind of what we do lately is we don't do the routine. We don't do the tests that should be done. Just the same way with the vaccine, they didn't run the tests like they normally would have to determine whether it was safe or not safe. They just pushed it through and rushed it and.
I mean, the thing that's a whole other topic.
I know, but I'm just saying that just keeps reiterating how we're just not following our own guidelines for safety and the value of human life, no matter whose it is, and the fact that it's okay if we have.
You're right. It's about exerting influence, about exerting power. It's about money. Yeah. It's about making money. And actually every single bit of that stuff, the vaccine included and this, are all about making money. That's all it is.
This guy's probably out of business.
Well, you mean besides being dead?
Well, the company itself obviously
Well,
is
let's
corrupt.
put it this way. I guess that fitting that it's named Ocean Gate.
And do you think anybody's going to want to take that trip
Oh,
again?
well, I mean,
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Think so, for sure. I'm not laughing at the fact, if it's true, not laughing at the fact that people perish, particularly if the one aspect of it was true, that the son, the 15-year-old son, was terrified of the trip, didn't want to go, and the only reason he went was because his dad wanted to do it. If that's all true, that's really sad. It's sad anyway, but yeah, making the kid's worst fears were realized. The other thing that has surfaced in change of topic is a couple of things. Some good news from a conservative standpoint, and some not surprising news, again, with on the Biden White House. But there have been several Supreme Court decisions over the past couple of weeks that have been a product of of the conservative leaning now of the court. The web designer who challenged a law basically that stated that if a she didn't want to do web designs for gay weddings, and as a religious.
Kind of like the guys with
The cake, same thing. And that ultimately that guy
They put him out of business.
put him out of business. He won. He
One
won. Someone might argue he won the battle and lost the war, but the bigger war is the culture war, or the right and wrong war, and that's probably how he saw it.
Yeah.
But and the same thing now with this web designer. This case went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, no, you can't force this person to design these things because it violates their rights and freedom of speech. So, that was, I'm not trying to discuss the decision. I'm saying that was one of the things that happened. And of course, we do know obviously about the Roe v. Wade thing that happened. There was also one other decision. Oh yeah, the thing on the colleges. The suit brought by the Asian students who were the plaintiffs on affirmative action. The administration or the administration of admissions, Harvard and North Carolina, I think, were the two schools that were involved. That, at least in this suit, and these attorneys general filed on behalf of these plaintiffs. And the reality is that Asian students had to score. I think when they looked at all the numbers, they were having to score like 300 points higher on their like SAT scores. That's out of 1,600. They would, if they scored 300 points higher, they might get in. Yeah, but if it was a black or Hispanic student, they would get in with scores that were that much lower.
Well, that weren't meeting the standard.
Weren't meeting a standard, exactly. And so the Supreme Court has said, "Hey, you can't
It's merit.
It's merit based.
It should not change.
And I think the justice that wrote the majority, one of them, wrote an opinion. I think it might have been Rehnquist, or not Rehnquist, the Chief Justice who wrote the majority opinion. But I know Clarence Thomas really excoriated like Sotomayor, who is saying, or the Ketanji Brown, who is the newest addition, the lib, who was basically saying it's taken us back
Yeah.
to the slavery days, and he
Basically.
just excoriated her.
Yeah, she stood alone.
So that the action there, that remains to be seen, the impact. But those are two things that never should have never should have been issues in the first place.
Exactly. I mean, there's some things that you really think really we're wasting time on these things. You can't bully, just the whole idea that somebody says, "Oh, I don't like the fact that you won't represent,
Right.
all these various
Well,
minorities, communities, whatever, because you don't want to based on your religious beliefs." Well, I'm sorry, you can't bully people into doing something just because you think It's not even your business.
Right.
And you don't necessarily even have do business with them.
Correct.
You just decided you're going to make this an issue.
Correct.
So now, all we're teaching kids is, oh, just bully somebody long enough and you'll get your way.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the liberal philosophy. That's the Saul Alinsky playbook. You just keep screaming louder and louder and louder, and yell at
And you'll
people and
get
accuse them, and eventually they'll break down. And that's all. That's classic radical playbook.
Mhm.
And sadly, and then of course the ever popular Hunter Biden is.
Once
We
again, in
think
the news.
we're
It's in the
we're
news.
making an assumption. Granted, we are making an assumption, but it's not without some foundation. I would say that what was it? I guess it was 2 days ago. Now,
Sunday.
yeah, Sunday. A The Secret Service discovered a bag of cocaine
In the evening.
in the evening.
In the evening.
In the evening, and after there was no tours that day, and
Well, they said there was one.
not Sunday. Not
But
Sunday.
whatever.
But anyway, it was, and we were, in fact, Soda and I were listening this afternoon, this morning. We were out, and we heard a tape of the Secret Service agents uh, speaking live when they
On a
were in the
recording.
White House, recording while they were inspecting
substance
and
being-
testing this bag.
The substance being found.
Yeah,
Where
and
it was
They
found.
tested it.
Testing.
And it tested positive, but they very specifically said it was in the library. And that was really clear. The reason I emphasize that it was evacuated. Yeah.
Jeez, why was that?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
anyway. And
Now we're going to blow the White House up with cocaine.
well, anyway, but they said it was in the library, and the the press is already saying, "Oh, no. It wasn't in the library. It was in the West Wing, but it was a very high traffic area where these cubbies. They're trying to make it sound like
where the
press.
the press.
Yeah, they're trying to make it sound like other people could have done it. Of course, I don't trust the Secret Service to investigate this thing and come up with the right answer. But at least the stuff that got out initially would indicate that there's more to this one than meets the eye. But if you want, go on YouTube and get the video of the shot of Hunter Biden on the balcony of the White House on July 4th during the fireworks. And you will see him, what's the description that was used? Very sniffly, banging his nose, but I've seen him with, going his hair and his eyes are wide, like he's high. Okay. And take a look at that and see what you think. But here we go. How could anybody suspect a guy who is just about ready to cop a plea deal for operating a vehicle under the influence of cocaine, buying a gun, while he's violating cocaine
But he's rehabbed.
laws?
He's
But
rehabbed.
oh no, yeah, he's reformed, and Jill and Joe are so proud of him. Anyway, and so now they've got to deal with that. And of course, when you do that plea deal, part of the deal is you have to be drug tested. That ought to be interesting. And so
How
anyway,
long does cocaine stay in your system?
not long enough. They'll figure something out. I mean, it's just, and I mean, how else could you, unless you're a privileged person, there's no way you can get through
Oh gosh, no.
an area where you wouldn't be screened. And they say, oh, it was found in a cubby. That is a load of rubbish. We heard the tape this morning. So multiple officials involved in the White House say it was found in a cubby near the White House executive entrance. It was not the formal West Wing lobby, as was reported. It wasn't in the West Wing lobby. It was in the library. There it is. There's the tape. Watch Hunter in the background. Let's do it again. Lead his eyes later. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that he is, getting rubby and sniffy, and then off he disappears. I'm telling you, he is.
Yeah, Joe's not even looking at the fireworks.
No, Joe's not.
What the heck is he looking at?
He's looking at the kids. I don't know. He's just gazing. Who knows what he's looking at? Could be looking at his daughter. Remember the one that he used to shower with? I don't know. She's up there. These are sad, sick people. Look at Hunter. I'm telling you, fidgety and the nasal thing. I'm telling you, just I know that circumstantial, but I don't know. Anyway, be interested in your comments if what you think about that. But yeah, found in a different location than previously reported. Okay, well, we're going to take a couple minutes, or about 10 minutes, I guess, to
Yep, sounds good.
charge up, and then we will get back and we'll do some more current topics. And if on a chat you have any questions that you'd like to send along, by all means, please do so. We'd be glad to discuss it. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. We'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back.
Yep, we're back.
You were, before we get to the question from the chat, you were just saying what?
About the big tech, the censorship that Biden's trying to.
Oh, you mean the way that, they had been contacting the social media companies to restrict information?
Right, so to control the narrative, and they're trying to say that they're. Well, now it's he lost the case.
Well, yeah, that was a federal
He
judge,
doesn't have the right to
a federal judge had,
control.
yeah, they said that they couldn't control the narrative.
Well-
And I mean, apparently there were all manner of meetings with the State Department that were scheduled to take place with the social media companies.
Right.
Most
control-
notably Zuckerberg
to control the narrative.
Yeah, and those have all since been canceled. So now what's happening is the Department of Justice is probably going to try to do workarounds to try to defy the law anyway. That's what's going to happen.
They really think the American people are just really stupid.
Well, we are.
No, we're not. Not as stupid as they think we are.
Honestly, there's too much I could say that, but some of us are. I mean, you're back to what was it that the founding fathers said? The most valuable aspect is an informed electorate.
Well,
It's all in the same bucket as far as I'm concerned. People are not informed, and the way that the information is fed to us now in bits, it's only selectively given. People are lazy.
But
They don't research anything.
they've lied about so much stuff that
Yeah.
you can't even begin to say.
I
okay,
agree.
Here's just another thing that they're telling us the truth.
Okay.
No, they're not.
All right. I'm not sure that this is a perfect segue, but the question from a Bangkok Inc. on the chat is: should we abolish the ATF? Now, I somewhat tongue in cheek, but not entirely, made the comment that if I understood clearly what the responsibility of the ATF is, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, I might better be able to answer that question. I mean,
Yeah, what do they do?
what do they do? I mean, the only recent stuff, I won't say just recent. I mean, the only times I've heard about them in the past several years is when they've been raiding, like a gun dealer. There's some gun dealer, the largest online guy in the country, within the past 3 weeks, who has impeccable records. Okay, has obeyed all the rules. The back does all the checks that need to be done, et cetera, et cetera. And they raided him, and they're demanding all his records. I mean, I right now, I think the ATF is useless. I think the only function that they're trying to accomplish is somehow get a list of everybody in the United States that owns weapons, so that they can identify who they need to take them away from.
Yeah.
I mean, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
They're not
doing. What are they doing on alcohol and tobacco?
Yeah, there's more alcohol and various flavors than there's ever been.
Yeah, right. And tobacco. Okay, so what was that? What was that movie years ago? The advertising guy or lobbyist who got paid for convincing the world that they should smoke. Anyway, that's a side thing. But yeah, there's nothing going on with those
except
things.
for the firearms,
Except for firearms.
It's interesting to me that we don't talk about the fact that in supposedly gun-controlled cities, Democratic, is where most of the shootings, gang wars take place. And they all seem to be able to get their guns in a supposedly gun-free zone.
Well, one of the things, I mean, it's the old classic argument. The bad guys, laws aren't made
for the good guys.
For the bad guys, they're made. Good people are the only ones who obey laws.
Right.
Bad people don't. And in fact, the shooting that I think the one they were making a big deal of, the most recent one in Philadelphia, they found out that was it was gang related. Like 6 people.
What about the transgender guy?
I thought you got something sticking on the other side. That would, in fact, was that the Philadelphia one?
Yeah, that was.
Okay, maybe it was another
Could've
one.
been
That's-
both. It
Could
could've
have
gone-
been one and the same.
Could be the gang.
But yeah, but the person who did the shooting in Philadelphia was at the very least a cross-dresser, may have been transgender, and did that. I mean,
We don't have stable mind. Our healthcare system is grossly
well, we don't.
mismanaging
We never. I mean,
the people
look
that
at,
need.
well, look at all the look. I mean, the mental illness aspect of it it's gangs. It's a pure criminal or it's mental illness.
Yes, but
And
instead on campuses, we're going to get counseling for those kids who are now upset that their loans aren't going
Oh,
to be forgiven.
that was
and-
the other one that we did. We didn't talk
Yes.
about the loan
Yes,
forgiveness.
forgiveness.
That got shut down.
Yes, college tuition.
Yeah, that got shut down. And in fact, you're right. I think
But we're going to
Harvard,
counsel those kids.
Harvard and some of these other places were providing
And
counseling.
they'll pay for it. But do we do that for the mentally deranged in our country? No. Instead, they're on the streets.
And we give them free money and free drugs, as they do in California. So should we abolish the ATF? I don't think the ATF is anything other than
How much money do they
effectively is effectively like brown shirt folks who are just out to find a way to take guns away from the rest of us. How much? I'm sure they get billions of dollars. Alcohol, tobacco, firearms. It's been around forever. Been around since the days of Al Capone.
Maybe they need to reevaluate that.
Well, no, I mean, you could say the same thing about the IRS. You could say the same thing about the
CIA.
the Department of Education.
Yep.
I mean, if you go down the list of these, huge, money sucking agencies that do nothing.
What about charities that
Do
don't
nothing.
get all kinds of loopholes and don't do anything?
What are you talking about? Oh, you mean what do you mean
Well,
they get?
like
Like
our own presidential or our own, they just create some kind of a charity where they can get money given.
you mean like a nonprofit?
Profit. I'm sorry, nonprofit.
Yeah, I mean, where someone, people do that,
And
and
then they
you
have
fill out an application, and it goes to another
money
bureaucrat.
flows right
Well,
through.
that's the IRS who decides that stuff.
Mm.
That was that's going back a few years. That was the old, what was her name? Lois Lerner, if I remember correctly, who is the person in charge of approving or disapproving whether or not some nonprofit would be granted tax exempt status. And she was the one who was targeting Christian and conservative organizations, holding up their applications and not letting them be successful. I mean, that's my whole point. The this term weaponization of government, it's absolutely true, and even the founding fathers said it. Government is the biggest offender of trampling people's liberties and rights because of the power that they have. And all these agencies, these are not elected people. These are bureaucrats. These are people who are appointed to their roles. The public has nothing to say about any of these people. Look at the FBI with Christopher Wray, and the way that like he stonewalled on the the documentation that proved that they were going after Trump, and he said, "Oh no, that doesn't exist."
Yeah,
And until Senator Grassley there says, "Oh yeah, well I've read it. Oh yeah, I guess it does exist." I mean, get rid of them. They need to be reinvented. They need to burn it all down
now
and start from scratch.
they go after Trump, but then nothing's been said about Biden's documents in the garage lately.
Nope.
Or
Nope, not a word.
yeah, nothing.
Not a word.
We forgot all about that. We're just gonna not act like you just act like that doesn't even happen.
Well, what do you think about what are some of your thoughts? There's a whole host of things you could talk about when you talk about the upcoming presidential election or even the past ones. What's your thoughts on what we're going to witness this time around?
They're gonna come up with something. It's not And
You got to be specific. Who's they and what are they going to come up with?
the ruling party,
The Uniparty.
yes, because you've got Republicans that are part of it just as much as Democrats.
I
You've
agree.
got a lot of people hiding behind
I agree.
the doors, not being open about where they really stand. So
What do you think's going to happen?
I don't think it's going to be an honest election, just like the last one wasn't, and the last midterm wasn't.
Who do you think's going to? Who do you think the nominees will be? And who do you think's going to be? I mean, I know those are big guesses, but what's your thoughts?
Well, I think they're working awfully hard behind the scenes to somehow. I mean, I don't. I really just don't see how they can push Biden through as the candidate. That's a real struggle. In
I
a
think
year and a half from now, so much more damage can be done and come out about his health, his mental status,
the corruption. I mean,
corruption.
even there have been a few questions, even from some of the
I mean, he's sold out.
mainstream press.
He's absolutely sold out our country.
Oh, so I mean, I am of the mind that they are going to find a way to make Joe and Kamala both go away. Go away.
Yeah.
And it'll and do it. And but they say, okay, so who are they going to run? And I've said this to you before. You don't necessarily agree with me, and I even said it yesterday that I think that there's a very significant chance that this person could be elected president, and that is Michelle Obama.
Good luck. I gotta tell you, she becomes president. I'm finding another country to live in.
There may not be many left worth living in.
I don't think the country's ready for a woman to run it.
Well, I don't. I mean, I'm not.
And we have
I'm not. Those are two different questions.
Think of the foreign powers that are in power right now. There's not a female in the mix.
I'm saying that. I'm saying it's. I agree with you. I should have started by saying I agree with you. It's not going to be a legitimate election. It's going to be a contrivance. And there's if they cheated once and they did it out in the open, nothing has happened. The Republicans, for all their yammering, have done nothing. Have done nothing significant
to change any of it or to stop it from happening.
And so I think they're
going to come up with some reason why we have to use ballot boxes again.
Well, no,
which is a joke.
What was the thing? What was the thing we were reading? Remember the thing we saw just yesterday about the UK that someone is saying that they get that right now in London that they're potentially talking about lockdowns again because the COVID cases are up in London. I mean, I'm just telling you what's being reported. That doesn't make it true, but it certainly is what they're saying. And remember, Joe is trying to sign over things like
the World Health Center,
World Health Organization, they would control everything and they could speak for us. One of the other things, you talk about guns and the ATF and other things. Joe is, and I, maybe some of you folks out there are aware of it, maybe you're not, but Joe is looking at signing a small arms treaty with the UN, which would give them he would essentially hand over our Second Amendment or our sovereignty and determining what we're going to do with small arms and handing it to the UN and saying they can make the rules for us. That's the kind of stuff that world wars are going to be made of.
Right.
Okay, but that's the kind of stuff they're talking about.
Well, Civil War and then. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at the great dictators of the ages have always gone. The first step is always eliminate the weapons that the citizens have to oppose you with, and so that still remains their top priority, which is why you always hear. Now, as I told you, I think they're going to get rid of Joe and get rid of Kamala because they are so desperately bad, and everybody knows that. Even people on the liberal side.
The longer they put this off, the less time they have to figure out who the candidate's gonna
Well,
be.
and
Because
why,
Kennedy's in
now,
there.
all right, and let me,
And
and
he's
why,
made some
let me
momentum.
ask you this question. Why do you think, and that's not the actions of people that are concerned, is it? Waiting and using that time and not seemingly not
No, they're
moving
figuring-
forward with any sense of urgency.
They're already figuring out what they're gonna do.
They already know what they're
They
gonna
already
do.
do.
It's already done.
It's already.
It's already been put at, it's already been put to bed.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's over. And, you know, so I am not optimistic.
Well, when they had, and you, if you read the final stage, that, when they did those Georgia elections, when they redid and the two Democrats ended up winning, there were, I want to say they said something like 750,000 people, and predominantly Republicans who voted the first time, but then they, however, challenged that outcome and redid it. And then it was the two Democratic, because that's changed the whole seating in the Senate.
Right.
And they said that you had people that just didn't vote because they didn't feel that it made any difference. Their vote didn't count because they were going to change it anyway. They were going to change the whole outcome, whatever. So they didn't go back out and vote.
Well, that's
second
just,
time.
and you know
But
what?
that's
And
what they're pushing.
well, that may be true. And if people stayed home and didn't do it, I mean, you can make all the fun you want of votes being meaningless, but if you stay home, what was it? What now? What was it? What was the thing that our granddaughter said when they had that senior game? You miss 100% of the shots you don't
No,
take.
Yes.
And if you stay home and don't take a shot,
Yes,
you deserve what
you've got
you
no-
get.
But
No complaints.
this, let's go back when you stood in line to vote, when we stood in line in the cold
And
for
I
2
am
hours
and I am
or
ashamed
more.
and I am ashamed to say,
But that's how important it was
no,
to
it
vote.
was. Yeah, it was important to vote. I'm just saying
Even though-
we made a bad choice that time around. I think, I don't know. That was way
No,
back
I
then.
don't know that I voted the same way you did that time. But at any rate, it doesn't matter. You as an American citizen, that was the one thing you could do.
Yes,
And
right.
and that there might have been some cheating going on even then.
There's always been cheating. They've been
But
cheating
not
since the
to
first
the
election.
degree.
Oh, let's start living through technology.
Yes. And so, but that's the thing. You just think, and now you don't have to have proper ID. You gotta have a license, and you gotta have.
Well, no. Why do you think
You
that?
know,
For instance, in New York City now, anyone who shows up can get a license. Anyone.
Right.
You don't have to be legal to get a license.
No.
And when you register,
that counts as your vote.
when you register, when you get your license, you're automatically registered to vote.
Yes, I saw that too. That now all of a sudden, or just.
So that's how illegals will be able to vote.
Yeah, but how do you know how they're going to vote? And nothing requires a signature anymore. Kids can't even sign their own name these days.
Well, I mean, and yet that I think we had one of those discussions one time. And in fact, the thing that, you know what, one of the things that upset me the most recently, and it was with our own kids. Did you actually hear them defending that?
No, I
The
didn't hear
fact
that discussion.
I had mentioned that as something that has occurred. That is kids who are getting out of high school now.
Oh no, I didn't.
Or they can't write in cursive or read it. Many of them, they can't. They have to print or type it. And people say, oh, well, what difference does it make? I have to tell you, if we are that thick, and I'm talking about our kids, thinking, oh no, well, kids, they don't have to, it's just putting a mark down anyway. Say, man, how stupid do you have to be to think, okay, you're so lazy, you can't even do that.
You can't even
have not even that unique signature.
Never mind.
Give your whole identity away.
Yes. Here's the thing then. Why don't you have any pride in having something that's significantly yours.
I don't, that's a good question.
Why does that not mean
Uniquely
something?
yours.
Yes.
Uniquely yours.
All these writing analysis people can tell whether or not it is yours versus somebody imitating it.
I mean, we won't need handwriting analysis because you
Well,
won't
no,
have
there's
people.
a
As soon
profession.
as everybody who can write in cursive dies off.
Yeah,
Anyway,
It's
although I
amazing.
think there are some
Don't you
places that,
find-
isn't that incredible?
it is incredible. That's your identity in some respects.
Yeah.
Not that it's like, oh, but
No,
still,
I mean, but,
that's one of those things. It's
But
like your
let's-
fingerprints. It's
but-
what makes you uniquely
but,
you.
but listening, well, yeah, but listening to people defend it or say, nah, it's not necessary. I mean, I just say that's it's just another measure of indifference and who gives a
Yeah,
gives a
who
care?
cares? Yeah, right.
Who cares?
Who
It's
cares?
just
You
so
can't win anyway.
it's
So
sad.
who cares?
It's sad. So anyway, boy, we've set a real positive tone
Yeah,
today,
right.
Shona. I'm not
No,
sure.
I know.
We have a question. It's more than just the cursive itself. And I'd like, why don't you elaborate on that? Oh, about kids' education. Absolutely. It's more than just the
Oh,
cursive.
please
Yeah.
don't take me
Well,
down that road.
Well, no, that's really an excellent point. One of the things I know in the area that we're in, the a school board just did something which was pretty, I thought, pretty significant.
Oh,
They brought back phonics, and if anyone out there doesn't know what it is, then that's sad, but you should look it up because it's really learning how to speak and sound out
Read.
words and read, and and it helps
And
with
why do you think-
everything. No, my point being
Yes.
that
If
I think it's in this realm. It really is more than just about that because you've got kids that you essentially have kids that can't read or write.
and they're
At an
graduating from
appropriate
high school.
from high school.
This is the reason they're bringing it back because they're realizing
Oh yeah.
they have so dumbed down education with kids that they're passing these kids right through that they can't read, they can't write.
Well,
But the reading is
And if-
pathetic.
well,
because
that's because
give a book to somebody that can read and you can educate yourself.
well,
If you can't read, you're gonna have a problem.
I'm sorry, and then if you talk about that, people would call you a bigot, you're racist, you're this, you're that.
Why? Because I
you're
want to see them
insisting-
have a chance at actually education.
It's amazing.
It
And it is about well, I think it again as the chat points out, it's more about the whole process of education itself and what is it and what it ought to be.
Well, the dumber that the let's
well,
just
if
take
you're
that.
just pumping garbage
If
into
you,
them.
exactly. Then guess who can control them?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Because then they are too stupid to think for themselves. They're not being challenged. to
Well,
think
it's
for
not.
themselves.
That's and that is the biggest single thing that's missing. What do they call it? Critical thinking. Many people, in fact, many adults, might be the majority of them now, don't have the ability to think critically. They don't evaluate things. They
Well,
don't sit back. I mean, if anybody, it's basically anybody under 50 years old. All you go, I mean, even every place we go, we sit there and you watch people on
Well,
your
on
phone.
the
It's just they're not. Well, it's the same. My point is, there's no thinking going on.
no, they're just being hand fed.
They're just they're
And
being
how many kids
spoon-fed
just get
stuff.
they don't even do a research paper anymore. They just get it off the internet.
I actually had a
You can
discussion.
just find one that nobody's read.
That's not going to happen. But now, because you know why? Because of AI.
Yes.
And I heard we had a discussion. I had a discussion with some friends a couple of weeks ago on artificial. Actually, we had that discussion with I won't say with one of our sons-in-law. In a field where the writing is important. And he talked about being able to use some of this, was it Chat BT, whatever some of this artificial intelligence programs are or apps are, and give it some criteria or feed it something that's an example and ask it to give paragraph or several examples of things, and bam, up it comes, just like that. And so that's what you're getting now, and those aren't necessarily the very best things. That's just what the application feeds you back based on what you've given it. I mean, it's no different in many respects than when you talk about doing a search on the internet. If you and I put in the same query into the same search engine, we won't get the same answer because the algorithm that are built around you and me are different,
on
and they
what
will
you
get
look up.
based on what you've already done and
Right.
looked at and read.
Well, look at, just do,
This is George Orwell. Yeah.
yes, that's what it's compared to in that book. Just look at movie, like when you go to any of the movie sites. Oh, if you've watched this movie, here's 5 other you'll like.
That's exactly right.
Here's here, you know,
Very association.
if you watch this, then you'll like this program or this stream of
No.
programs.
Anyway, the other thing I was saying, one of the things that we talked about, I'm going to jump back because of something that one of our technical folks said, is because I think it's germane to all of this. If you can somehow just convince people that they can get something for nothing, or they can get money for this or money for that, that's the way they're going these days. Nobody wants to. No
No
one wants to
ethics,
work.
no morals.
No compunction about how, if I can get it, good for me.
Yes.
And
I'm not gonna
the
tell
more the
anybody
better.
else.
And we were talking about the fact how that greediness and that selfishness has just absolutely destroyed society. And that, by the way, is very scriptural. It says in the final days that man will be, meaning humanity, will be completely consumed with just wealth and getting stuff for themselves. Even in these impossible circumstances, when their well-being is threatened, they're still going to worry about their money. And one of the things I had mentioned when we were off was that for many many years, and by any standard that people want to apply in this country, we've been successful. I mean, right? By
lot of
any
people.
standard, a lot.
of people.
All right, but
Yeah.
but I'm just saying that how much does a person need to have? But we talk about people who just spend it on themselves,
Trips.
or I mean, we have so many acquaintances. I won't even say they're friends. Some are more friends than others. All they worry about is the next trip they're going to take, the next self-indulgent thing that they're going to do. And for years, I worry, say, what is wrong with me? Because don't I don't lay around all day thinking about money and what I can do or what I can have or what I can't have. And I have to tell you, I really, watching what goes on with people now, I feel absolutely vindicated. Doesn't mean it's not important. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be a good steward of what God's blessed you with, and use it for His glory. All right, and me taking 4 trips a year uh, to go see something isn't necessarily,
A lot of these people, it's out of the country, not even
exactly.
in the country.
I mean, we talked about this. Seeing stuff in our home, in our homeland, would be
Right.
more important to us than anything else. And just watching everybody be consumed with just pleasure, and do I have this? And oh, I made so much money. My investments, it's wonderful. It isn't as great, and I have this. And and it doesn't mean that some of those folks aren't even very pleasant to be around. But I got to tell you, uh, it's pretty sad. It's pretty one dimensional. And there's this sounds. I hope it doesn't sound typically altruistic, but I guess it is. When you think of all the waste, we talked about ATF and government and all the incredible waste and all this money, like the COVID stuff that's been sold, the money you talked about Afghanistan, how much was that stuff that we left behind worth? $82 billion. I mean,
and the highest technology
but
in combat.
the point is here we have more resources
Either way.
than any world would ever need. And because of the selfishness of people and the greediness of people and the indifference of people and the cruelty of people, we just it just evaporates. It all goes away, gets
Well,
stolen,
It's me first instead of the country.
It's me first and anybody else comes in second. Yeah, instead of the country. Absolutely.
Well, no, the people who are supposed to be there for the American citizen.
Yeah.
They're there for themselves.
Well,
they are not doing anything for
where was it? Oh,
American
I know
citizens.
where it was. When we
To improve their lives.
did our bit of driving cross country and we stopped in Kansas at Dwight Eisenhower's
his public
of
life.
his
Memorial life.
as his memorial, and it was he who there was excerpts of his speech, and it was he at the end of World War II who sounded the first alarm on the military-industrial complex. That is the unholy alliance between industry and the military and the greed of both sides. That's why. Why do you think we've got people in Washington now? Wars, wars, wars. Let's have war in the
he was
Ukraine.
also-
Let's have war here.
He was also
there.
the last president to balance the budget.
Yes, I think so. Right.
Pretty sure that was his other.
And which is always been required by law. But the point is that he spotted that unholy alliance early on, and that's exactly what we've got now. We've got people
Had military background,
and that's why these agencies and these other things are never going to go away, because it's all about putting money in certain people's pockets, and it is the elites, it is the bureaucrats. It's the people who are in the leadership positions. So that's pretty funny. Even with my ruby slippers, no, sir, this is not Kansas anymore. That's what it says. Steve David says. So
the basketball player,
he said,
Kansas, the kid that just got into, who does wear the ruby, the sparkly red jacket, and
I just want to read his quote. It says, "So it's safe to say you guys aren't in Kansas anymore." That is the truth.
Yeah, we did pass through.
So I can't read that screen too easily without her.
No, I got that, but then it immediately made me think.
He's talking about the NBA
draft. That and don't ask me why we have.
There was a young man. I can't remember his name.
No,
but he was the one who said, "I know I have a face that people would like to punch."
Yeah.
And he was wearing, he was from Kansas, so he wore in homage to Dorothy.
Yes,
he wore ruby red shoes and a suit when he was drafted.
Yes.
So, but he's probably, and I guess he's not going to end up in Kansas anymore.
Probably not. No. I don't know.
But anyway.
Well, yeah, I don't even remember what team he got on.
I don't know which team drafted him.
Yeah. Oh, anyway.
Anyway,
that ruby red.
We thank Bangkok and Steve and Wright. Thank you so much for your questions. We really do appreciate them. You make me want to be more informed, so that I can could perhaps do a better job answering some of those things. We are going to be back on Thursday next week. Now that our summer schedule and those of others around us have settled down a little bit. So we will look forward to seeing you all back here next Thursday. And once again, if you have any suggestions for guests or others that we should invite, by all means, make those suggestions. We would be happy to entertain. Because we did have Andy Nowicki on 2-3 weeks ago, and that was pretty fun. So anyway, we thank you for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
God bless.
Take care.